Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Not so. SSL denies plan to wind up the company. New Road Traffic Act takes effect today. And later in sports, Zimbabwe captain set to miss first test against the Windies. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, is insisting it had no plans to wind up its operations. This is after the multi-million-dollar fraud at the company went public. SSL made its first public comments on the matter in an explosive 7-page release. Andrea Chisholm reports.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark told the nation on January 25 that the Financial Services Commission FSC got a court order to stop SSL from winding up the company or selling its assets. That's because an attempt was made to wind up SSL. 1 week later, SSL says not so. There was no plan to wind up the company now rocked by a multi-billion-dollar fraud. In defending its position, the company says on January 12 it told the FSC about the appointment of a trustee, Cadion Campbell of Phoenix Restructuring, Advisory and Insolvency Services Enterprise. Mr. Campbell's appointment took effect 4 days later, on January 16. SSL says it was their intention to give their powers and authority to the trustee and that the affairs of the company would be under his control. The trustee and his team would also do an independent business review and other investigations to, among other things, determine the financial state of affairs. SSL said the purpose of the appointment was not to wind up the company. As trustee, Cadion Campbell would ensure all conservatory measures were in place over the assets, as well as to ensure full compliance with enhanced governance protocols as directed by the FSC. The information would be used to explore options for restructuring and reorganizing. In the meantime, SSL says so far there has been no run on investments and most of its clients have not been affected by the fraud. However, trust in the entity has been deeply damaged. Law enforcement officials, including the Financial Investigations Division and the Fraud Squad, are probing allegations of fraud projected to be about $2 billion. Help will also come from the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigations and international forensic experts. Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
The new Road Traffic Act came into effect this morning, and with that comes a number of changes and fines. This includes a new device known as the decibel meter that will monitor motor vehicle noise levels. The Jamaica Constabulary Force, along with government bodies, started enforcing the new Road Traffic Act and the new fines therein. Among the new measures is the use of the decibel meter. This device measures the loudness of motor vehicles such as bikes which operate louder than usual. For example,
motorcycles, it is allowed, 85 is allowed. For small trucks, medium trucks, 90, and for large trucks, 95.
Forgive my ignorance about how you test it. Them drive past you and you just use a machine, you just put it aside.
There are two types. There's actually a fast test and there's actually a static one. But usually the police would stop the motor vehicle. And so the device would be used about 7.3 meters away to the side of the vehicle. The driver would rev it to about 3,000.
Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Wednesday, ACP Mackenzie explained that persons can also make a report to the police if they see someone in breach. According to ACP Mackenzie, offenders will be prosecuted.
We'll go even further. It will have to be changed. So that vehicle can be taken to an examination depot and a certifying examiner can check it, serve a certificate of defect, the plate removed, the muffler will have to be moved and replaced.
Can or will?
Will. Because this is something that we cannot tolerate. And to the extent that it is a major problem, then we have to do what is required.
But it's not just a decibel meter. tint meters are again being used by the law enforcers.
That will measure the level of tint on your vehicle. So there is something known as the visible light transmission. And so your windscreen, it should have 80% VLT. And your two front windows, that should have 70%. And all other windows, 40%.
This is private or public?
For all vehicles.
Meanwhile, ACP Mackenzie says the new law also outlaws the use of cellular phones while driving. He says persons will be fined if in breach.
Holding it in your hand whilst driving. So a hands-free is okay. And persons may say that, officer, I am not actually talking. I just took up the phone to move it from one pocket to the other. Don't do that.
So that starts today?
That starts today.
What's the fine for that? And you take on my phone if you see me I drive?
No.
So what's the fine for that?
The police will not take your phone.
What's the fine?
$10,000.
$10,000
Right.
if you're caught using your phone without the earpiece.
The second phase of renovation work at the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James is close to completion. This update from Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton. Dr. Tufton remains optimistic that a section of the building will be occupied before year end. The second phase of the Cornwall Regional Hospital renovations project will be completed in a few months. The work on the phase 2 is aimed at correcting structural defects. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the project is being closely monitored and it remains on track.
They are putting in, some structural things in the building to reinforce the structure. They are covering areas that weren't covered before, new roof generally, reinforcing so no leakage, and adding new windows and so on, and cleaning up the facade around the building on the external surface.
However, Dr. Tufton explains that the final phase will be complicated.
Is going to be putting in the ward space, the administrative space, accident and emergency and all that. And the equipment will be the absolute final, because it's going to be equipped with brand new facilities, brand new diagnostic equipment. So that phase we're hoping to begin March or post-March. Now, that is going to involve a couple of things. It's going to involve the team going in to just confirm some of the designs that they already have. We had sent a team to China to work with the company that is supposed to do the final phase, and they have looked at material and all of that. Once they complete that, I suspect that they will begin also to put in some of those spaces.
He's therefore hopeful a section of the hospital will be occupied by year end, but he says it doesn't mean the project wouldn't still have some way to go.
So the criticism about hitting down and constructing new would be a fair criticism if it was a straight and cut and dry situation. But it wasn't. It was very complicated. You had to deal with existing servicing of people, and that had a lot of complications. Having said that, we are where we are. It is going to be a new facility.
Meanwhile, Dr. Tufton provided an update on the COVID ward that was built at the Savanna Hospital in Westmoreland. He says the ward is now being used as an outpatient clinic.
So it's now functional in a different capacity. It has the structures, because we made it quite structurally sound, to do a second floor and to remove the tent structure and replace it with concrete. So it has the columns and the base, and the bathrooms and so on are all built with concrete. So we're looking now at the possibility of how over time, okay, it's still pretty firm, we can replace the tent with a 2-floor facility. But right now, I went there recently, it's occupied, it's being used as a day clinic. It's air conditioned, the people are very comfortable. In fact, they were quite complimentary when I spoke to them.
With a humanitarian and security crisis now gripping Haiti, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says Jamaica stands ready to send police and soldiers to the Caribbean country to help restore law and order. Gangs and in Haiti have been carrying out vicious crimes, including murders and kidnappings. Mr. Holness also condemned the killing of about a dozen police officers. In Parliament on Tuesday, the Prime Minister reaffirmed Jamaica's commitment to working with CARICOM and other international partners to help Haitians deal with the challenges.
Both the JDF and the JCF have been alerted to this possible course of support, and they would have started to plan for such eventualities as part of their routine situational awareness and response readiness. We have long signaled, and here reiterate, our willingness to provide specific bilateral support, including in the areas of electoral reform and capacity building and logistics.
Opposition leader Mark Golding also endorsed Jamaica's efforts to help restore peace and democracy in Haiti.
Of a further deterioration of the security situation in Haiti and the further empowerment of criminal gangs and criminal organizations in Haiti, and what that might mean for the potential impact of that on us here in Jamaica, given that there is already established the guns for drugs trade and other related nefarious activities of that nature, is an alarming prospect for us.
A livestock farmer in Hampstead, Yala St. Thomas, is desperately asking for help as he's been plagued by thieves. According to Michael Ricketts, thieves in the area have been targeting his farm. He says he started out with about 30 goats and now he's left with only 15. The matter was
If I raise hog, they steal me hog. If I raise chicken, they steal me chicken. That is my only survival because I'm in and out of the hospital.
The matter was reported to the Yala's police station, but Mr. Ricketts believes that is not enough to protect him. He's making this appeal.
If I can see somebody to help me to fence up the place where I'm living or help me to move from that spot, I would thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, I need help. Mr. MP, I need help. Mr. Councillor, I need help. Help I need. Private sector, I need help. Help. I need help.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
In the world of business, Grace Kennedy Limited has taken tangible steps towards an eventual listing on a major foreign market outside the region. Last week, the company disclosed that it had hired Nasdaq ESG Advisory to help it secure an ESG sustainability rating, which has become one of the pillars on which companies are ranked. The targeted timeline for the listing was not disclosed, neither was the selected advisor. However, CEO Don Webby says the company is considering listing two subsidiaries, GK Foods and Grace Kennedy Financial Group. In international business, the U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to raise its target interest rate by 0.25 percentage point today. The expected increase would set the U.S. Central Bank's benchmark overnight interest rate in the 4.5% to 4.75% range, the highest since November 2007. Economists expect hikes to continue at least through March. That's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody-Ann Barrett.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report. In this evening's health report, we'll look at fatty liver disease.
We have to be very concerned. We are living in a prevalence area that's very high for obesity and type 2 diabetes, and also alcohol consumption is very high. So we need to pay attention to fatty liver because we do have individuals who are walking around with inflammation of the liver unknown to them, unless they do some type of blood test or have an evaluation of the liver, like an ultrasound, for example.
That's a health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. The best way to avoid fatty liver disease is to do the things that maintain overall health. Stay at a healthy weight. If you are overweight or obese, lose weight gradually. Exercise regularly. Limit your alcohol consumption. And take medications as prescribed. And now time for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the United States Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has announced processes through which nationals of Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela may request to go to the United States in a safe and orderly way. The DHS says qualified beneficiaries who are outside the United States and lack U.S. entry documents may also be considered on a case-by-case basis. This comes after authorities reported an increase in the number of illegal Caribbean migrants in the United States. On the international scene, as many as 500,000 workers are striking across the United Kingdom on Wednesday, closing schools, cancelling university lectures, and halting most of the rail networks. According to the Trades Union Congress, this will be the largest single day of walkouts in more than a decade. This escalating strike action comes just weeks after the government tried to resolve pay disputes to bring an end to the worst wave of industrial unrest the country has seen in decades. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
We take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jordan Ford.